This is the Fearless Finance Podcast with Amy Ross. Amy and the team at Gold Shield Wealth are dedicated to helping adults plan for and manage the hurdles they may face on their journey to retirement. Get more, including contact information in the show notes. Now, Fearless Finance with financial advisor Amy Ross.
My name is Mark Owens, and last week we had a great conversation about some of the myths and misconceptions in retirement. And we only got to a handful of them. You okay?
Those are fun, though. Those are, it just never gets old, like hearing that. Like, really, people actually think this? Okay.
I think a lot of this is all this clickbait, and we've talked about it before, just the noise in our face. And like this will be the first one we start with here this weekend. If I've saved $1 million, I'm set for life. Because you hear some of these financial talking heads like Susie Orman or Kevin O'Leary or people like that, and they say, hey, if you've saved at least $1.5 million, you'll be fine. Hey, you won't be fine unless you save at least $5 million. How can all of that be a big misconception in retirement planning?
Well, fine is all relative. Fine is different for everybody. So I've never been one to say $1 million is that magic number, because I've seen people blow through a lot of money really fast.
Yeah.
But if you're a miser, then $1 million, you could maybe even have $750 left, so it's all relative to the person you're talking to. So there's not an answer for that. People hear what they want to hear a lot of times. And so if $1 million is what you magically happen to have, then maybe that's what you think your magic number is.
I mean, let's be honest. You asked me 20 years ago, I was like, $1 million, I could make that last for the rest of my life with inflation and the cost
but not now.
Yeah. I don't think you could.
No.
But again, everybody's plan's a little bit different. I think you said it last week. If you live out on a farm and you've got everything you need right in front of you, then you don't need much. But if you're like me and you like playing golf and you have to buy a lot of golf balls, then you're going to blow through that.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, some people are just very inexpensive people by nature. They don't need much.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, I'm not that person.
I know my limitations.
I'm going to want to go do things. I'm going to want to travel, and I'm not going to want to have to worry about every penny that I spend. I mean, I'm okay, being on like a reasonable budget, but I don't want to have to nickel and dime it.
Right.
No way.
Everybody's plan's a little bit different. And when you go to Gold Shield Wealth, it's not like there's a big board when you walk into the front office like, okay, I need a retirement plan B and give me a side of RMDs while you're at it. It doesn't work like that. Everybody's
not
plan
at all
is built specifically for your wants and your needs. That number real quick, 843-585-5223. Well, speaking of, here's another myth and or misconception about retirement. Inflation. I mean, it won't be a big deal once I'm retired. I don't have to worry about inflation. I've got my income.
That's right. Everything just stops when you retire.
You're fine.
Nothing ever goes up.
Market never changes.
Just for you because you're retired. The rest of the world's got to pay more, but you're retired, so you don't have to do that anymore.
Not so much.
How ridiculous is that? Come on. I don't believe anybody actually believes that.
Inflation will continue to affect us through.
Forever. I mean, that's life. There's always been inflation. And, a lot of times you think, okay, well, oil might go back down or this might go back down. But once we're conditioned, they've conditioned us to paying more for things, very rarely do they get less expensive out of the goodness of people's hearts.
Agreed. The, what was it? My box wine, shrinkflation, used to get about 3 bottles out of that plastic bag in the box wine. Yeah. Now it's down to like 2.5 bottles. The price went up. Yeah. The price went up. The goods went down and it never changed. Shrinkflation right there. Unacceptable.
That's terrible.
But I just grabbed that plastic bag out of the box wine, just put a straw in it like a Capri Sun.
I was going to say, you just squeeze the rest of it out.
That's right. I'm not afraid. I know who I am. I know. All right, let's get to it. I was sitting on this one from last week because I want to give you some time to really get into it. And let's talk about taxes. Because, Amy, here's a myth. Once I retire, my taxes, they're going to go down. They might even just go away altogether.
Well, again, how much money are you going to spend on yourself in retirement? If you choose to not make any money and not take any money out of your savings and report no money, no income, then you can keep your tax bracket very low. However, you may be sitting digging ditches in the, digging dirt piles because you have nothing else to do. You can't have it both ways.
But do people actually, like I kind of say that jokingly, that, my taxes are going to, but do people really believe like once I retire, Uncle Sam's going to retire with me?
I don't feel like I get that as much. I think people expect their taxes to be lower than what they want them to be, like with the big, beautiful bill saying Social Security won't be taxed. A lot of people fell prey to the hearing what they wanted to hear, that it won't be taxed at all, but that's not true at all.
What about the misconception that all retirement dollars are taxed the exact same?
Yeah. I mean, basically, the taxes don't change just because you retire. So whatever's telling these people that their rules are different, retirees' rules are different than every other United States citizen, they need to be banned.
That's funny. All right, let me give that number, 843-585-5223. Hey, I do see those commercials before that say, I can give you a tax-free retirement. Are those real? Like, can you really build somebody a tax strategy where they won't pay any taxes in retirement?
No. Not that I'm aware of. I've never figured out a way to get it to where it's zero taxes at all. But you can mitigate them for sure. And strategic, taking the money out of your different kinds of accounts and understanding fully how it will be taxed can keep the tax bracket as low as possible. That's what I try to promise my people is like, I can't promise you zero.
Right.
No, I mean, I don't want to go to jail with anybody, zero. We could do that, but we might get in trouble. But we want to keep them as low as we can.
Yeah. You look good in red today. I don't know if you'd look good in orange. So,
orange is not my color.
Orange is not your
even
color.
A little.
GoldShieldWealth.com, talking about some of the myths and misconceptions in retirement. All right, here's one. You mentioned income a couple of minutes ago. We were talking Social Security last week. What about a 401k? Hey, Amy, if somebody comes to you and they say, my 401k is all the retirement plan I'm really going to need. How do you respond to that?
The 401k plan could be turned in to everything that you need, but just sitting there, generally a 401k, the funds inside of there are target date funds. So it's not robust enough to really provide you with what you need for a full-on retirement plan. However, we can take the money that's in the 401k and then position it. And potentially if you've got $2 million in your 401k, that may be everything that we need to create a robust retirement map for you.
Target date funds, you hear that a lot. Are you a fan of those? I know some people that just don't like them. They think
I'm not a huge fan. They're too basic.
Right.
They're very basic.
Define it for me. Give me the Cliff Notes version. What is a target date fund and give me the pros and cons of it.
Well, basically, when you have workplace plans, I always laughingly say you got to look around at your coworkers and understand that everybody has to be able to understand how to use this workplace plan. So you got people of all different educational levels. So they're very basic. So a target date fund is if, you're 20 years old, you're just starting to work, just starting to get into, if you go aggressive, it'll set your target retirement date out a long time, right? You have a longer time span, so you can invest more aggressively. But then as you get closer to retirement, you would choose a more conservative fund, meaning that target date fund probably assumes that you're retiring in 5 years. So all it is basically saying, okay, here's how long we think we have to invest until that person will retire. And that's how it determines the amount of risk you're taking.
But there's so many variables within that situation.
Correct. You can't get the type of diversification that I can get you outside of it. But then again, with workplace plans, they have to be able to provide a certain amount of investment options, and everybody has to somewhat be able to understand it. And so they're generally just kind of dummied down.
Yeah.
That way everyone can take advantage of it.
I want to go back to the 401k conversation here for a couple seconds. What's one of the biggest mistakes that you see adults make within their 401k?
It's crazy that you asked that, because when I first got started, I worked with a lot of state and federal employees. And so I talked to sometimes eight to 10 different employees a day. And the one pattern that I found was a lot of them were not even putting anything in at all. And then I'd have to say, okay, you realize they do a 5% match. And if you're not doing 5%, you're giving away free money. That's a huge one. The biggest problem, though, is underfunding of them. People aren't saving enough.
I mentioned a couple seconds ago the orphan accounts. Do you ever find that people have multiple accounts through old jobs?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Nurses are the absolute worst for orphan, and teachers. Nurses and teachers are the worst for orphan 401k accounts. I'm actually collecting like 5 for a nurse right now.
Really?
But yeah, because you just leave and it's like, it's only 10,000, 15,000. I'm just going to leave it there. And then you just forget it even exists. Yeah.
But to some
pennies make dollars. That's what I always say, man. Pennies make dollars. Let's collect the orphan children. Let's see what we got here.
But to those people that have those accounts and they say, well, I'm just going to leave it. I know it's there, but I'm not going to mess with it. Isn't that kind of like a bonus money? Isn't that like is that the mind?
No, because chances are if you're not messing with it and you're not employed by that institution, then nobody's messing with it. So it's just sitting there basically doing nothing. So, I mean, I stand by still don't touch it. It is just bonus money, but collect it all together and move it in and have someone manage it for you so that you can get at least get something out of it rather than like it's just sitting there doing, it's okay. It's just sitting there doing nothing, but that's opportunity cost.
You're leaving money on the table too. 843-585-5223, a 401k X-ray from Amy Ross and the team at Gold Shield Wealth. It is no cost. It is no obligation to you. All right, here's another one. And you know what? I read this myth and misconception. It makes sense to me. Once I stop working, my financial decisions get simpler. I mean, that honestly feels like a little bit of truth, not really a misconception about retirement, because my financial decisions get simpler.
Again, I think it depends on the person.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes people's life is more simple. I mean, I know like raising children, that finances got pretty complicated during that. And for most people, right? Mm-hmm. So, I don't know how I feel about that one. I'm kind of with you. I mean, it is more of a streamline, like here's what I have to pay for. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't have as many moving parts, like variables, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Is that what you're trying? That's like
I mean, that's just what it feels. Yeah.
Like when you're our age, you know, like I'm still trying to pay off a mortgage. I got 2 kids in college. I'm on my 3rd pair of braces. You know, that requires a lot of creative mathing sometimes to get it all done. But, you know, hopefully when I retire, I won't have half of that to deal with.
Let me ask you, speaking of going into retirement, where do you stand on being debt-free in retirement? Do you like to is it okay to have a little bit of debt, like a mortgage, or maybe like, you know, a kid's student loan or something like that? Or do you try to get people as close to debt-free as possible once they finally retire?
That really depends. I look at the debt. I look at the interest that we're paying on the debt. I look at how much resources we have. It's funny. I was just talking to a gentleman yesterday and trying to help him make a decision on whether or not to pay off his mortgage. Mm-hmm. And we decided not to, only because if we do, we'll have to take too much of his other assets to put into that, which will make him real estate heavy. You know, so you just have to look at it both ways. I mean, it's obviously having no debt is obviously the best thing ever, right? And I'm a big fan of paying off houses, things like that we won't just go buy again. Mm-hmm. You know, if you think about a car, you go buy a car. Well, probably in 8 years or, you know, depending on how fast you like to trade cars, but that's something you're going to buy again. Right. You know, so when we look at using our assets, I look at things that's more of a permanent payoff. Like, let's pay this off, then we don't really ever have to worry about that again.
Right. Is there such thing as good debt? I've heard that before, people saying, like, it's okay to have a little bit of good debt here and there. What would good debt be?
Well, you know, good debt is showing that you can manage your debt. You know, my 24-year-old son, I actually just encouraged him because he pays his rent on time. And I'm so proud of him. He does everything on his own. But he basically had no credit, you know, so I encouraged him to get a credit card, pay it off monthly because he has to establish good debt, show that he can actually manage it. So a lot of times if you don't have anything, it's as bad as having none or having bad credit. Right. Having no credit, it can be as bad as having bad credit.
Yeah, I got the email this week that said your credit score went up, and I felt like such a victory lap. Like, I mean,
but I'm telling you, it will save you so much money in life on everything else. And that's what I explained to Colin. I'm like, honey, you have to understand, if your credit score is really high, you get lower financing on everything. The things that you buy in your life will cost you less. Mm-hmm. So keep that credit score up there. Yeah, I mean, it's very important.
Yeah. Have you ever had the phone call? I know it was about a month ago. We got an email. Somebody emailed the show, and they were like, Amy, I just feel like I'm drowning in debt. Like, how can you help out that situation? Because we've all got a little bit of debt. But if somebody's over their head, like, that's not really your expertise. You're not one to say, hey, let me help you get out of debt. I can help you manage towards retirement. But, I mean, debt's such a tricky term, if you will.
It is a tricky term. And for people, and I help my clients with this a lot, people that come to me and like, bring me all your expenses. We're going to have to really dig this in. But I don't ever want to forget my roots. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I've not always had a lot of money. You know, I've had to shove dollar bills around myself to figure, you know, to make ends meet, especially when my kids were littler. And, you know, so I help my clients do that. I like to look, because sometimes when you've looked at things for so long, you know, but I do try to help them figure out how to get rid of the debt that's bad debt, you know, that might be eroding in too much. You just sit down and look at expenses and, you know, I have one gentleman selling a couple cars right now for that reason. Right. You know, I have those difficult conversations and I will shoot you straight.
You know, I appreciate that you said that, because some people could just very easily say, hey, listen, there's not a whole lot I can do if you're over your head in debt. But what I just heard you say is, man, we're all in this together. And when you call
we're in it together, and we have to have very, very difficult conversations sometimes, but I will shoot you straight and be like, okay, you're broke. You know, we need to get rid of debt. Here's what we got to do. You know, if you'll let me help you, I will help you. It comes from a good place.
How can you be both the good cop and the bad cop at the same time, Amy?
I don't know, but I've somehow figured out how to do it most times. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just lucky.
Because
I think they know I really care.
Yep.
So it's very hard to be mad at someone when you know that they really care for you.
Yep. And the end goal is still always the same. Get them to a retirement.
The end goal is the same.
Yep. Here's another myth and misconception. Somebody that says, Amy, I don't need a written financial plan. I'll just figure it out as I go along.
Good luck with that.
All right. Let me know how that turns out for you.
I mean, honestly, I don't know what else to say. I actually have had people come in and basically say that to me, that they've got it under control. I'm like, well, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. I personally like to have a map when I go somewhere, though. I like to have some kind of guideline at least, and that can be, it may work, it may not work. I don't know. I'm not a gambler with my future.
Yeah.
Especially in retirement. So the smart approach is to have something actually mapped out to where you at least have a plan in place, because you may not go broke, but you may spend $100,000 more in taxes than you needed to, or worse, Do
you have the people, as people say, that I'll just figure it out as I go along, and they'll come to you and it's like, you know what, I kind of DIY my own retirement plan. I need help with one little aspect that you can help me with. And everything else, I got it covered. I got the Googles, I got the YouTube, I've got the Chat GPT. Amy, I'll figure it out as I go along. What's your take on that people who solely rely on doing everything on their own, except for maybe one little piece?
You know what? For me personally, I turn those people away. And the only reason I do is because I don't feel safe giving advice with only a small fraction of the information. And that scares me. So when I hear someone doing that and using Chat GPT and Google and all that, that's fine. If that's what they want to do, and I don't judge them for doing that for themselves. However, I'm not going to wrap myself into it, because again, people tend to pick up on the one piece of information that they want to hear, whether you've said it the right way or not. And, trying to give advice when you don't have all the facts, that can be bad. That can be dangerous.
GoldShieldWealth.com to meet Amy and the team. Now, listen, Amy, everything I know about retirement planning is what I've learned from you over this short period of time. So I do not even come close to being that type of person that puts myself in your shoes. But even I can tell you that this is a myth, a misconception, and this is a bad way of thinking. Somebody that says, I'm just going to rely on an inheritance. That's my retirement plan. Oh, God.
You know what? I get that one quite a bit too. And the problem is again, people hear what they want to hear. Yep. And so the amount of money that they think that they're going to get in said inheritance is generally not the same amount. It's usually a lot less. I mean, the majority of people, now there are some uber wealthy people out there, and, good on them. But the majority of people, especially, here in Myrtle Beach, I'm speaking about, do not have enough money for them to retire on, and then another generation basically retire on it as well. Right? That's not normal. But yeah, a lot of the kids like to say that. Well, I'm just waiting. I'm like, wow, that seems like a bad way to live right there, waiting on somebody else to die so you can retire.
Yeah, all you need is pops or grandpa or uncle or whoever it is going to leave you that money to have a bad day, and all of a sudden that money goes straight to charity.
Well, that's just it, too. Like, they can write you out of the will, too. So I don't know. I've always just been so much more independent than that. I can't even imagine thinking, oh, well, okay, well, so-and-so's going to die and I'm going to be fine. Like, to me, that's terrible. Like, that's just a terrible person, like, to think of it that way.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Hey, as we're talking about the younger generation already thinking about, I'm going to get an inheritance to retire. But I want to talk to that generation that wants to get started early. We got a call, I don't know, about a month ago from somebody who was 15 years away from retiring, but they were already putting plans in place. They were kind of getting everything together. Is there a certain age where it's too early to start putting a plan? No,
not at all. I mean, even like the Trump account, so we can open up for children, that's starting them right away. So no, there's nothing wrong with starting too early at all.
Is there a point where you have to say, listen, we've got to get something started here because it's almost too late? When you suggest they...
generally, if someone that is like truly does not have enough money to retire on, there's not much fixing you can do with less than 5 years to work on it. I mean, you just can't. You need the power of compounding interest. You need to reset the savings patterns, so many different things. So yeah, it always makes me sad when someone comes to me that's right knocking. A perfect example was a gentleman a few weeks back, and it just really bothered me. I had to tell him he probably needs to work until he's 70 because between his Social Security and his wife's Social Security, retiring now at 65, they've only got $200,000 in reserves. So it's just not enough money to last them long term. So on my own good conscience, I had to break that news and say, unfortunately, you need to work quite a bit longer, and we need to to focus on saving, because a lot of people just think that they think that Social Security, and because you're okay today, people forget about inflation and they forget about taxes. That's what gets them.
And so you're saying it's never too early to get started. Now, we'll tell you this, that Amy Ross, not a miracle worker, but if you've done a good job, you've got a solid 401k, a savings, if you're lucky to have a pension, that's where the power begins to start building upon the gains in your portfolio. And that's what we invite you to call Amy Ross and the team at Gold Shield Wealth, 843-585-5223. Again, 843-585-5223, or online at goldshieldwealth.com. As we're talking about getting started later in life, I do want you to hear this clip from ER Dr. Bill Yount. He also hosts a podcast on financial independence. He told Morningstar that his own retirement wake-up call didn't come until much later.
So there was an age generational wake-up call where I turned 50 and I was like, wait a minute, nobody's coming to save me. I've got to take care of myself. Retirement is 10, 15 years away, and I don't even know what a net worth is. I don't know what our budget is. We don't have one. So all of a sudden, I was dealing with career burnout at the time that I found out that we were nowhere near where we needed to be with our money in order to exit a career that had become, in some ways, toxic for me.
Ready to go, wasn't quite prepared. I bet you've heard stories like this multiple times.
You know what? I draw so many parallels with him myself, Mark. That's wild, because I changed careers at 40. Career burnout, I just happened to luck into one that helped me prepare for retirement, so I get to help other people and help myself. But yeah, that's
it's a reality of life. But there are ways to get ahead of the game. If you're in that situation, so you're not just trying to play catch up, you're not making risky moves or making bad decisions, it's never too late to get started putting a plan together, Amy.
It's not. And if you think about it, I think that the government pretty much knows that most people do drag their feet to age 50, because if you look, there are catch up contributions and there are rules and provisions in place that allow people who have waited to fund things more aggressively because of that reason. So I think it's more common than not for people to really floor the gas pedal down around age 50 because they're like, oh, crap, should have saved more, can't undo time. So then you've got to make up for it. So that's why there are those catch-up provisions.
And Amy, somebody says to you, listen, from what I understand, retirement planning, it's just about investments. How is that a misconception?
Because it's not. It's not about just the investments at all. Actually, that's probably one of the least focused on parts of it. It's more so income, healthcare, long-term care. How do you navigate all the different phases of retirement? So it's more about decumulation than accumulation at this point. So how do we decumulate effectively?
So define who needs Amy Ross, who needs Gold Shield Wealth. If you were to find like the person who needs to be listening to you that should be reaching out to you, and this may be kind of an open-ended question, who needs your help the most right now?
People that need my help the most right now are those within 5 years of retirement. You should really sit down with me. Let's see if we can start looking at Roth conversions, start situating your money in a tax-effective manner to start decumulating it. So yeah, those are the people that need me the most, are the ones that are here that want to sit down with someone, actually come up with a plan, set some goalposts down. I love doing that. A lot of times people say, well, I don't know. I love honing in on those actual numbers. Like, no, I need a number. Like, are we retiring at 66? Is it 67? You need to give me something.
Do you prefer the person that comes in, they have everything organized to a T? Or do you like the person that comes in and just says, I think, I have an idea? What's easier for you? Or what's more fun for you?
Well, obviously what's easier for me is the organized person.
Right.
I'm just being honest with you. The ones that I like are the train wrecks, though. I love the convoluted, the more moving parts. You have to understand, I have a physics background. I like taking things that are moving all over the place and then polishing them up. So the people that come to me, they're like, I don't know. I'm like, I kind of find it fun. I like it.
It's the puzzle piece. You like putting the puzzle together.
Yeah, it is. It doesn't scare me at all. People look at me, they're like, I'm sorry. I'm like, don't be sorry. I like this. This is fun. Thanks.
So here's what I hear. It's never too late to start putting that plan together, especially if you're a train wreck. That's our people right now. That's
Amy Ross. Send me some train wrecks.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Gold Shield Wealth Financial. Gold Shield Wealth is an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth, LLC, IPW, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Gold Shield Wealth Financial are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Gold Shield Wealth Financial and IPW are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Gold Shield Wealth is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Gold Shield Wealth. This radio show is a paid placement. Any and all services related to Medicare are an outside business activity and are not offered through or supervised by Impact Partnership Wealth, IPW LLC. Gold Shield Wealth has a strategic partnership with tax professionals and attorneys who can provide tax and or legal advice.